Please get involved. A very good resource which you can find on the Greenpeace website is a publication that you can download and print out yourself. It's called Better Never Than Late: The Climate Fallout of Ontario's Nuclear Power Plans. So just take a look at that and it'll give you a lot of information to go on. Next please. Now, I mentioned these opportunity costs. I'd like to mention this. Right now, we've seen this enormous collapse of Wall Street, right? It's incredible. And they're still coming up with more money to give to these huge financial institutions. Well, let me tell you something. These same financial institutions that don't mind investing in subprime mortgages and receiving multi-billion-dollar bailouts from the government will not invest in nuclear power unless they have 100% loan guarantees ahead of time. So what they've tried to do, and John McCain would have approved this, I'm sure, because he was a big fan of nuclear. What they want is, there are something like 27 applications right now for new nuclear reactors in front of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. All of them require, they are contingent upon loan guarantees. And that means loan guarantees by the federal government. In other words, they don't want to risk their money. They want somebody else. They want to risk your money. They want the bailout before they even make the investment. So it's kind of a preemptive bailout is what they want. And something similar is happening in Canada, although it's more hush-hush in Canada. The idea is that they will either get federal loan guarantees from the federal government, or they will raise your rates and use that money to build these reactors. So you will pay now for building new nuclear reactors rather than building what you would probably rather see built, which might be something else. But here's the thing, not only do you have this initial opportunity cost of billions and billions of dollars going into building the plants, but then 20 years down the line you got to refurbish them, and that's more billions of dollars. So you have a double whammy. And then 20 more years down the line you have to dismantle the thing, and that costs billions of dollars. As a matter of fact, believe it or not, there was a front page story in the Paris newspaper Le Monde, which estimated that talking about, and this included military and civilian, talking about the military and civilian nuclear facilities that are already shut down, the cost for dismantling these, because they're radioactive, you see, the cost for dismantling these would be approximately $1,000 billion. That's $1 trillion. That's incredible. That's considerably more than the Wall Street bailout. That's just to take these radioactive structures apart. And then you have, of course, hundreds of thousands of truckloads of radioactive rubble, and nobody knows exactly where that's going to go, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. And what's more, you're not finished yet, because then you have more billions in order to look after the radioactive waste that's left behind, including that radioactive rubble. Here we have an organization run by the nuclear industry called the Nuclear Waste Management Organization. They've estimated that it costs $25 billion just to look after the high-level waste from our nuclear reactors now, the ones that we already have, for the next 300 years. Recently, they've dropped the cost from $25 billion down to about $5 billion because they found out people don't like the sound of $25 billion. And what they mean now when they say $5 billion, it's going to cost $25 billion at least. But what they say is we're going to invest the $5 billion and it's going to grow. And if we wait long enough, it'll be $25 billion. Well, I just hope they're better investors than some of the people we've seen investing money recently. In fact, there is a case just recently in the United States where a decommissioning fund was just completely wiped out by bad investments. You know, the idea that these guys are going to invest and make money, good luck. Let's go to the next one. Now, I'd like to deal with these three constraints that were identified by the Intergovernmental Panel on Working on Climate Change. They were, if you remember, safety, waste, and weapons. And I think it's very important to realize this, because when we talk about global warming, it's really encouraging to see how much the planet has woken up to the problem of global warming. It's really encouraging because it means that we do love this planet, and we do care about it, and we do think about the future, and we're trying to get responsible actions taking place to deal with this problem. The difficulty is that when people are scared, they sometimes make foolish mistakes. They sometimes, you yell fire in a crowded theater and people die because of the panic. We can't just jump from the carbon frying pan into the nuclear fire without thinking about it. Is it going to solve the problem? Well, I think the answer is no. Is it going to create problems of a great magnitude, maybe as great as the global warming? My answer is yes. As a matter of fact, I think the spread of nuclear weapons around the world is at least as great a challenge to the viability of our future on this planet as global warming is. And you know what? We're not dealing with that problem. We really aren't. Well, let's go on with nuclear safety. Next slide, please. These are the photographs of Robert Del Tredici, a colleague of mine who is an artist and a photographer and also a teacher at Vanier College where I teach as well. And he took this photograph in the Oak Ridge down in Tennessee where they actually prepared the uranium for the first atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. That's a model of the uranium atom. The uranium atom is at the heart of all nuclear technology, whether military or civilian, because it has a property that no other element has, no other naturally occurring element has. There are some man-made elements that have this property, but not any naturally occurring ones. Next. And that property is called nuclear fission. It turns out that just around January of 1939, in Berlin, Germany, two scientists discovered that if you bombard uranium atoms with things called neutrons, you can get these atoms to split. And when they split, they give off a tiny amount of energy. And that energy release is the energy released by nuclear fission. This is a monument to nuclear fission from the ex-Soviet Union. It was intended to honor a man called Kurchatov, whose figure is in the foreground. He's the father of the Russian atomic bomb. And in the background, we see the uranium atom at the very moment of splitting. And the two hemispheres are the broken pieces of uranium atoms. Now, those broken pieces, pay attention to those because they're going to be with us for a long, long time. They're called the fission products. And there are hundreds of different kinds of fission products because when a uranium atom splits, it splits in hundreds of different ways. And these have different names which you probably heard. Things like strontium-90, cesium-137, krypton-85, iodine-131, and so on and so on. We have 211 of these listed on our webpage, and it's by no means complete. So there are hundreds of different fission products which are created when you split the uranium atom. The semicircles indicate or symbolize the energy that's given off when this occurs. It's a small amount of energy, but if you have trillions of atoms splitting almost simultaneously, you have the power of the atomic bomb. That's what happened to Hiroshima. Next, please. Now, when the bomb explodes, all those fission... This is a man who actually designs atomic weapons, and when Bob went to take his photograph, he said, could we get a picture? Shall I stand over here beside these pretty pictures of the good old days? And he was quite a fan of nuclear weapons and nuclear testing. He said, I hope they never stop nuclear testing because it's so interesting. He said, there's so much science that you can do out of this. And he expressed to Bob the wish that they never stop testing these things. But when they test them, of course, in the atmosphere, all those fission products go up and they come down as radioactive fallout. And by the way, they're still coming down because they're up in the high stratosphere all over the Earth. And the people who got the highest doses on our continent, in Canada, or let's say, were the Inuit, because they eat caribou, and the caribou eat lichen, and lichen is a very efficient accumulator of radioactive fallout. Next. Now, these fission products don't think of them as invisible rays. They are actually materials. They are hundreds of different materials, but they're unstable, and that's why they're called radioactive. And so we have radioactive varieties of other elements which are normally not radioactive. Iodine-131 is just like ordinary iodine, except it's radioactive. Ordinary iodine we have in our table salt. Why? Because it goes to the thyroid gland and helps to prevent goiter. Well, radioactive iodine also goes to the thyroid gland, and it also helps to prevent goiter, but unfortunately, it also damages the thyroid gland because of the radioactivity. And in small children, this can be particularly bad because the thyroid gland regulates mental and physical development, and it can lead to mental retardation, it can lead to stunting of growth, it can lead to cancer. After Chernobyl, the World Health Organization admits that there are 5,000 children in Belarus who have had their thyroids operated on because of the iodine-131 from the Chernobyl accident. But then there's all these others, and they all have different properties. For example, we've got Strontium-90 goes to the bones and may cause bone cancer. We've got cesium-137, which goes to the muscle tissue, because each one of them has their own pathways through the environment and their own pathways in the human body, and that's where they do their damage.